is Teresa Wargo. Sorry about it. My name is Teresa Wargo, and I chair Disability Rights Wisconsin's PAIMI Advisory Council, or the PAC as we call it. And on behalf of myself and our council members, we're happy to have you join us today. So I want to thank our Peer Recovery Conference for sponsoring this session. It's great to have that opportunity to partner with you. And we're going to have a few words from Todd from the conference committee. Todd?
Yes, hello everybody. Yeah, thank you so much, Barbara, Disability Rights Wisconsin, Teresa, everyone that's involved with hosting this listening session. We have 1 day left of the conference. We started on Wednesday, and I think the last count I heard was we had somewhere up to 340 participants with the Peer Recovery Conference. And so, yeah, so that's wonderful. And so we're so happy to promote and sponsor and for this listening session. So I hope you get the feedback that you need. That's really going to help help push things forward. So thank you so much for letting me say a few words.
Thank you, Todd. It's great to partner with you, and those are some great numbers. So nice work. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to review our ground rules. So a few of our meeting logistics. It's helpful if you remain muted during the presentation. If you have questions for the speaker, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand. We're going to answer as many questions as we can. For agenda item number 3, we're going to call on people. So raise your hand, and this is an option under in your Zoom. And you can raise your hand through virtually, or you can just simply raise your hand. That would work too. And if you have connectivity issues, it can help sometimes to turn off your camera. And this training is live captioned, and we do have interpreters. So to use the captioning or to turn it off, click on the CC icon on the dashboard bar down below, and you can turn that on and off. If you need support, just put it in the chat box. We'll be monitoring the chat. Joining us tonight is DRW's Executive Director, Lea Kitz, Disability Rights Directory of External Advocacy, Barbara Beckert, who staffs the PAC. And she's my right-hand person. She's amazing. And Lea will be speaking. And our speaker, Ellie Jarvie, is under the weather and not able to join us. She sends her regrets. Kit Kerschensteiner, DRW's Director of Legal and Advocacy Services, is going to be our speaker. We also have, I believe, Melanie on for a DRW staff member. And our members of our PAIMI committee, our PAIMI Advisory Council, are Mark Flowers, he is here, wave Mark, Tim Sauber, and John Hines. And I don't know if they got their cameras on, but they are part of our PAC. Mark, do you have anything you want to say? Are you good? You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I just want to say thank everybody that has joined us tonight, and I really do hope that you guys are kind of talkative and kind of throw some really good stuff at us, because that's what we're looking for. So I appreciate again that you joined us, and let's come up with maybe a couple of solutions in the scope of this conversation, or at least starts of solutions anyway. So thank you all.
Thanks, Mark. Tim, John?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm excited to be here. I apologize for not being on camera. I've been on a 3-day training today for 7 hours of Zoom each day, and I'm a little zoomed out.
Don't blame
I'm
you.
excited to be here and to hear what everyone has to say, and to just be in this space together.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I echo Mark's comments and look forward to hearing the input from all of the attendees. Thank you for being here with us.
Great, I appreciate that, John. Thanks so much. So this session is being recorded. It's going to be posted on our website as a reference for community members. Now I am pleased to introduce Lea Kitz, DRW's Executive Director, who's going to share some brief remarks. Lea?
Hi, very brief, because we're here to listen to everybody who came, so not listen to me, but I just want to say welcome tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time to tell us what's important to you, because that's important to us. Very much appreciate, Teresa's leadership on the PAIMI Advisory Council and Barbara's coordination of the PAIMI Advisory Council. And Kit Kerschensteiner is the grant manager for the PAIMI grant, which helps us serve people with mental health issues. And so again, that's all I want to say. We're statewide, and we're welcome to this tonight, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lea. So DRW's Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness, or PAIMI program, provides advocacy assistance to protect the human rights and civil rights of children and adults with serious mental health conditions. This work is supported by our PAIMI Advisory Council, who advises Disability Rights Wisconsin staff and the board of directors on policies and issues that affect people with mental illnesses. And then it sets priorities for the Protection and Advocacy Program. So the purpose of this virtual listening session really is to learn about Disability Rights Wisconsin mental health advocacy assistance. Then we're going to open it up for discussion. And we want to hear from you about the support and resources most needed for people with mental health needs, and your suggestions on priorities for DRW's mental health advocacy. So we're going to be recording the session and sharing it on our website, so it's available for people who could not attend tonight. In addition to our discussion tonight, we have some additional resources and videos for you to view about DRW's advocacy assistance, and Barbara's going to put that link in the chat so that you'll be able to go ahead and view that at a time that's convenient for you to view. Our council also has openings for 2 members. So we are looking for a parent of a minor child who receives mental health services, and we're looking for a mental health service provider. Now, providers include individuals who work at facilities, group homes, and community programs. So if you want more information on how to become a member and an application form, you can go to the website, and Barbara will put that link in the chat. And hopefully either you know someone or you can direct us to someone who will know someone. So the first part of our program is sharing information with you about Disability Rights Wisconsin advocacy assistance. And I'm going to turn it over to DRW's Director of Legal and Advocacy Services, Kit Kerschensteiner. Kit, thanks so much for filling in. And we're going to give you about 10 minutes.
Sure.
We're going to take questions, and anybody who has a question, you can raise your hand virtually, in person, or put it in the chat. So Kit, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Teresa. Given that we have 10 minutes, I'm going to be very high level with this. If you want to ask specific questions about kinds of cases, more particular about a kind of case we might take, you can certainly do that in the chat as we go along. DRW is a combination of a lot of different programs, one of which is the P&A. So there are other things that we do that I'm not going to be talking about tonight, because we're focusing on not only the Protection and Advocacy Program within DRW, but the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness, which is one of the 8 or so programs within the P&A. So this is not by any means all the services we provide, but in focusing on the services we provide specifically regarding mental illness and activities that we do around that general area. We do a combination of individual cases and systems advocacy. We don't have a lot of staff, so every year we have to look at the priorities that we had last year and things we're finding out about from our advisory council and members of the community, which is where you guys fit in, because we're right now in the middle of our planning process, and our new application with our new plan has to be submitted by October 1. So that's why we're interested. We're always interested, but this is particularly timely to get some information from you about the issues that you believe are the most important for the limited staff of DRW to be engaged in. Because we have so few staff, there's a lot of things we want to do that we can't do. And even inside of those issues that we have selected as a priority focus, we can't necessarily take every case. So if you're on our website or whatever, looking at the plan, and it says we assist individuals to live and receive supports and services in the least restrictive environment in the community possible. Yes, we do that. We get more requests for assistance with that than we're able to accommodate. So it kind of depends on the situation and the severity of the situation. If there's an institution involved or someone would rather move from group home A to group home B, we have to evaluate each of those in light of the resources we have and figure out which cases we can take. So it isn't that these issues aren't important, and it isn't that the individual's problem isn't important. It's just that we are so limited in the amount of staff, which we just loosely term resources, that we have to make choices between all the eligible people with significant problems, and how we're going to help as many as we can, which is why we also put in a significant amount of time into systems work. Although we still take on the one person, one problem cases, we found that it's also very helpful to a lot of people to work on things systemically, to hopefully, if we see a problem, and again, this is where you guys come in terms of helping us identify problems. If we see a problem occurring over and over again in the community, we hopefully can figure out a systemic response and strategy for it. And if we're successful pushing that through, we might be able to help hundreds or thousands of people instead of one at a time. So we have a few buckets, about 6 or 7 buckets that we generally lump things into. I'm just going to go over them very quickly so you have a sense of what the kinds of areas we're looking into and focusing on. One is the community integration, least restrictive environment. So that is a lot of our individual casework. We get a lot of calls from people who are stuck in a facility somewhere and they need some advocacy assistance to help them come up with a plan, not just a plan that has a place to go, but has enough supports with it to be successful. And that's important to have both those things in place. We're also a member of the statewide closing team for facilities. Any licensed facility in the state of Wisconsin that has people with disabilities under 60. And the reason we have that cutoff is because the Board on Aging and Long-Term Care is there to represent the people over 60. So that way we have 2 people at the table instead of just one or the other. And we work with on the closing teams when a facility, a group home, if it's licensed, a lot of them aren't, they're certified by the MCOs, but if it's a licensed group home or a CBRF or a nursing home or some other facility, we are at the table to make sure that rights are protected and people aren't just herded onto a bus and driven someplace and say, this is where you're going to be now. So that we have right now, currently we have 8. Eight closings going on right now for people that have people under 60. So it's a lot of work because they all meet every week or every other week. So there's a lot to be done there. Secondly, our second bucket is discrimination. Although I would argue that you could find some areas of discrimination in everything we do. This one we highlight around anti-discrimination laws of employment, housing, public accommodations, which is basically places where the public's allowed, like the Walgreens or the movie theater or McDonald's or whatever. And housing, I don't know if I remember if I said housing. And we look at we take individual cases, and we also do significant systems work for people who have been discriminated in their job, their workplace, or their home. We do not do, I know there's going to be a lot of this potentially coming up because as things end from the COVID pandemic relief acts, we do not do evictions. Occasionally we've gotten involved when the eviction is solely due to failure to accommodate the person's disability versus a payment of rent issue. There are other sources that we can refer people to if they have that concern, but we aren't going to be able to take those on. We do a third bucket that we do, and this is actually I should have mentioned this one first, and that's abuse and neglect. That is our primary charge of the P&A, is to investigate incidents of serious abuse and neglect in facilities, across settings. So we do it in facilities. A lot of what we get is from facilities, but we also can do something in any place that's providing a service. We're not going to do someone living independently in their home, and at least our program isn't going to get involved with a domestic violence situation between two people. It's got to be related to a service that they're getting through CSP, CCS. They're in a facility, that kind of thing. So we investigate those. We also investigate deaths very specifically in state facilities, Milwaukee County facility, and any others that we hear about, because this is a primary concern for us is people being stuck away in facilities and then having really bad things happen to them. Along the same lines, we also do significant rights violations investigations. We don't have a lot of staff to take a lot of these cases on. I know a lot of people want to sue. We can tell them what their rights are. We can help do the investigation to see if there's supporting documentation, and potentially work with, if it's still ongoing, especially if it's ongoing, work with the facility or wherever it is that the rights violation is occurring to resolve it. But if someone after the fact says, this happened to me, we get a lot of calls where people call and say, this happened to me 3 months ago, and I think it was a really serious rights violation. We can give you technical assistance. Likely we're not going to have the bandwidth to help. We can give you referrals potentially to an attorney, but we're not going to be able to bring that 5161 patient's rights violation case for you. We spend a lot of time working with individuals and systemically on making sure there's access to appropriate and adequate array of services for individuals, so they don't, a lot of times you're told, well, I'm sorry, this is what we have here, which is basically vanilla. And I know the ticket says you get free ice cream, but we only have vanilla. We don't have chocolate or strawberry or anything else. And that's not the way services should be. Service should be tailored to what people need, and not just to the one kind of that one flavor that a particular county may have available. We do a lot of work on that, both with individual cases and a lot of collaborative group work, working with other advocates to work with counties, individual organizations, the state, systemically, to make sure that there's an adequate and appropriate services available. And then we also have, we also have a couple of our programs that are based more on setting, I think, than some of these last ones, other ones that I've talked about. And that is the criminal justice system. The jails, Wisconsin jails and prisons are by far the largest mental institutions in the state of Wisconsin. And there's very little protection, there's very little rights, there's very little access to advocacy for people who are in that system. We aren't involved with what the public defender does, which is to get people through the trial process. We don't get involved in that. But we do deal with jails and prisons in terms of, are you getting the services? Is somebody getting the services that they need? Do they need an accommodation to participate in, maybe an earned release program or whatever? Are they getting their medications, or did they, a lot of times when they come in to say, for example, a jail, the first thing they do is cut off all the medications and then figure out over time which ones they're going to let somebody have, but that's not a very good way to do medicine. So we do a lot of work there. And finally, the other more setting-oriented priority is K through 12 special education. And in the area of mental health and kids, we have focused our advocacy to more specifically on suspensions, expulsions, and both the actual ones where they get served with the paperwork, and then specific ones, de facto ones where someone's sent to for 1 hour of school at the library with an aide, which might as well be a suspension, because you're not allowed, you're not getting much of an education, and you're not being able to participate. And that takes up a lot. That's a lot of the work that we end up doing for kids with serious emotional disturbances. The fact that they've got some issues that have to be worked on through say an IEP or 504 it's just ignored, and they're just seen as, well, we don't want you here. We get a lot of that. So we have a lot of those kinds of cases. So that's kind of an overview of the areas that we work in at a very high 30,000 foot level, but hopefully it's enough to give you guys some ideas of things you want to talk about specific to one or more of them.
Thank you, Kit, for that overview. I appreciate it. We do have a few questions. Barbara, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. So the first question, Kit, is what constitutes serious abuse? Would this also be within a school setting?
Second part first, yes. We definitely are interested in, for kids with mental health issues, but also cross disabilities, with seclusion, restraint, abuse by staff, might end up being neglect. The staff is neglectful, so bad things are happening. So yes, those are definitely priority. That falls within our abuse and neglect priority. Serious is it's hard to put a black and white firm line on it, but there really needs to be significant risk of serious injury or death. In the case of, that's generally across the board for DRW. In the case of mental illness, especially we found in the deep institutional end, if you're in prison or in a mental health hospital, that there's more, I don't know, I can't think of the right word. It's late in the day. I'm saying opportunity, but I don't mean opportunity, for abuse and neglect, unfortunately. So I think we're a little more mindful of what's going on behind the closed doors of a facility, such as jail or prison or mental health institute, in terms of what could become serious. But it's I think risk of serious physical harm, death, restraint and seclusion, illegal restraint and seclusion is always a high priority for us.
Yeah, thank you, Kit. Two more, and then I also want to recognize that we have some hands up, so we'll come to those shortly. So the next question, I'll read the short one first. What can you do if CCS isn't providing the services that they are supposed to?
Well, you know, as long as we have the resources to handle it, that's the kind of case we might be able to take on. You know, you have to call through our intake, and it all depends on the specific facts. But that is one of the priorities that we have, is failure to provide adequate and appropriate resources. Now we've done a number of CCS cases. More likely, if we're going to be able to get involved again, we get 10 requests and we can take 2 or 3 cases. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Maybe 4 out of 10. So we have to make some decisions on what is more impactful. Is, you know, does the person have the ability to, are they a good self-advocate where we could provide technical assistance? That's easier for us to do. Doesn't take as much time. We've had several cases where they've said, a particular county has said, no, oh no, you can't get that as ECCS. We don't offer that here. That's one of those, we only have vanilla. And the point of CCS is that it is to be broad and flexible, and they should be working with folks as to how to accomplish what that person needs to be successful in the community. So the closer it gets to putting someone's success in the community at risk, the more likely we are to take it. It's not an easy thing to say what's serious and what's not, because it's all serious. It's just the amount of impact, I think, and the likelihood it's going to create greater harm.
Thanks, Kit. I'm going to read one more question and then we'll go to Ara and to Robert. So this is a question about resources for people who are dually diagnosed. In this case, I think they mean with substance abuse challenges as well as mental health needs. The person says, many calls I receive, they say I need my mental health issues taken care of as well as my recovery issues. Some are homeless, uninsured, and underinsured. Who do we contact for help? I would like to give them a place to contact, especially if they are still using dual diagnosed treatment centers, detox with mental health included.
We may have some resources. We're not experts on substance use. And we're not even experts on substance use resources. We have some, but I wouldn't say it's exhaustive. I don't think that it's, I think the idea that someone is told to put half their self on hold to deal with the other half is not appropriate, and it's not the way people recover from a substance use disorder or from their journey to mental health recovery. So I can't give you a list of resources. If there's something we can do to help with the mental health side of it, then we're certainly happy to do that, and happy to try and get you to, I mean, if a case manager is working with this person, they should be thinking about all aspects, and we can help stimulate them to think about all aspects, but we're not, I just want to be clear that we're not substance use disorder experts at all.
Barbara, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to, thanks for your understanding with this darn technology. Ara, thanks for having your hand up. You've got the next question.
Okay, I actually have a few questions. The first one's a kind of shorter 2-part. If somebody makes a claim, does it have to be that actual person, or can like a worker put in a grievance?
Okay, so we would call it an intake because we're not, we're not, I mean, like there is the HFS 94 grievance system that you work through, that involves the provider and the county and up through DHS. So I just want to be clear, we don't find violations, we don't, just say this is substantiated or not substantiated. We just help that person to get what they need when what they need might be to have the facility or the program acknowledge that they did not honor their obligations to that person. So we do eventually we're going to have to talk to the person. Because we are express wishes and only the person's wishes are what we're going to follow. So if, for example, we've had calls where someone has said, my brother is got this problem and this bad thing's going on, and I've told him he should do something about it and he doesn't really want to. So I'm calling you so you do, so you'll help him do something about it. We will need to talk to that person and he'll need to say, yeah, I would like you to help me. Otherwise, we figure it's drifting into the best interest. This is what's best for them. And we want people to be their own decision makers. We will help them and support them if they're nervous about, I don't want to rock the boat. I know we can support them in that. But in the end, what we tell people is, when we walk out of this meeting or walk out of this facility, we leave and you're still there. You need to make this decision what's right for you.
Kit, can I maybe put a small caveat on that? So
Sure.
when you're talking with us, on disability rights, kind of consider it like you're all talking to a lawyer. And so they run on that kind of aspect. So we kind of do more of the legal stuff per se. So it's like me talking to my lawyer because I have a drunk driving ticket or something. That's kind of how we kind of work it. Our staff are all pretty much lawyers. If I'm besides their helpers, but that's kind of how we approach this stuff. So that might answer some of those hidden questions that are going through everybody's mind.
We're legal-based advocacy, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's court. There's a lot more about legal advocacy than going to court, although that's part of it. All of the advocacy specialists who are not lawyers are report to or supervised at some point by a lawyer. So their obligations and responsibilities under the Wisconsin Attorney's Ethics Code runs to them as well, because it goes through the license of the attorney that they work for. So the attorney has to make sure that they're not practicing law without a license, not giving bad advice, whatever else they shouldn't be doing. So we are legal based, because that underneath all of this, if someone is stuck in an institution and they want to get out to their own apartment and they're having trouble, if you trace that back upstream, there is a legal right there. And but it may appear when you're in a meeting that with a DRW staff person and the treatment team or whatever, it may not be the right strategy or approach to say, there's a law, so we use a lot of different techniques and strategies. So I think a lot of people say, well, you're a lawyer, why didn't you get in there and, throw cases at them? And that's not always the way to win the argument. So although we're legal based, our strategies are a lot broader and wider, I think, than just what we'd consider to be a straight and narrow legal approach.
And just a quick addition to that, if we do take a case, the person who is assigned to the case may not be a lawyer, is what Kit was getting at too.
Right.
Supervised by a lawyer, and the lawyer is reviewing their casework. But it depends on the case and what's happening with the case, the involvement of the attorney.
But I'll tell you, if it were me and I had a choice between one of our advocacy specialists to go, if I'm going into a discharge planning meeting, for example, I think that the advocacy specialists are very good at what they do, and they're equipped to deal with those kinds of issues. And I would want that advocacy specialist versus a lawyer who's like, well, I don't know, I'm not going to sue him over this. Where am I going to do? So we have our specialties, and I think that advocacy specialists are really, really adept at cutting through the clinical, programmatic baloney sometimes that people get wrapped up in, and getting things done. So I don't want to make it appear that people are like a lawyer and a paralegal. These are people with their own caseloads who are very strong, important advocates.
Thank you, Kit, for expanding on that, and Leah, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question before we go into our listening session.
There was a question in the chat from Catherine, and she might need to just expand on a little bit more. It says, how long do you give them to supply a therapist? And
I think that was a piggyback question on the original one. Yeah.
I think that was connected to the CCS.
Got it.
And they have, CCS is a Medicaid provided service. There are Medicaid rules about accessibility, and it has to be available to people. That doesn't mean that you call on Monday and you have a therapist by Tuesday, but there is a point at which it violates the essence of Medicaid and having services available to individuals. So I can't give you a day. I would say, again, severity is going to impact this, but the general rule is somewhere around 30 to 45 days. When you get into a program, they should be giving you the services that you need. Doesn't always happen, but it depends on the situation. But
the situation is their counselor left, and it's been longer. It's been at least 30 days, and they still have not supplied this person with a new counselor and got them back into the program.
Do they have one? do they have a body that's available to do it? Because there's impossibility.
I don't know, but that's
there.
why I'm asking. I mean, how long aren't they required to have somebody on contract or something to that effect if they're running this program?
Yeah, I think that if that's one of the essential services this individual needs and they're unable to provide it, I think they either need to find a way, they need to pay for the person to go somewhere else. They have to hire someone if they don't have someone on staff anymore. And that would be a problem. You can't be Medicaid certified to provide services in a network and then not have those services available.
Well, this person was in a program and they were referred to CCS to get better care, and now are not receiving any care except for their every 2 weeks meeting with their counselor or their social worker. And this has been going on now for over a month and a half.
Well, if that's something that they have in their plan and they're not getting it, they certainly can start right off with a grievance to HFS 94 grievance that they're not getting the services that are in their plan.
They could
Maybe
call,
that'll make a
call and
squeaky enough wheel to get something.
they could call and do an intake, right? And either get some technical assistance or.
Yeah, it might well be technical assistance. I don't know, again, I have to hear more of the specifics from the individual, but they certainly are welcome. They would get at least some information, referral, and technical assistance, even if it's just on how to file that grievance.
Awesome. Thanks, Kit. Thanks, Leah.
Yeah, can I ask you a question to Catherine, Teresa? What county, what part of the state are you talking about, if I can ask?
Outagamie County.
Okay, thank you. reason I ask is some counties have less money than others, so sometimes that can turn into a money thing, unfortunately.
So our PAIMI Advisory Council has the charge. Thanks again, Kit, Lea, and Mark, and everyone who asked a question. I appreciate that. So our PAIMI Advisory Council has a charge to assist Disability Rights Wisconsin with identifying issues that are of most importance to the mental health community, and to provide that feedback to DRW staff and our board to help set priorities for DRW's mental health advocacy assistance. So we will now ask you to share your input and suggestions. So this is where we want to hear from you. And since our time together is short, we encourage you to complete the Disability Rights Wisconsin PAIMI Priorities Survey. We're going to be providing that link in the chat. And that helps us also gather information. And we invite you to respond to these questions. What supports are most important for people with mental health needs to support their recovery and live successfully in the community? And what are your priorities for DRW's mental health advocacy? So if you want to speak, raise your hand. Again, there's an icon, or just simply raise your hand. Unmute yourself. Keep your comments short to allow us to hear from everybody. And you may also want to share in the comments and in the chat. We're going to be saving the chat. Any comments responding to these questions will be shared with the PAC and our DRW staff and board. So if you have any ideas or topics for other virtual events, please note those too in the chat. We'd like to hear from you. So what supports are most important for people with mental health needs to support their recovery and live successfully in the community? And what are your priorities for DRW's mental health advocacy? Robert?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank the DRW for the years of support for participants in programmings here in Northern Wisconsin. Still having a problem with our CSP, CCSs in not getting the vendor agreements paid in timely manners to keep them for the continuity of care. I would like to see PAIMI advise the state as to the accountability when it comes to these vendor agreements and the payments in which should be negotiated up front. We lose vendors because our counties are not even honest with new vendors coming on about the audit requirements down the road. And then they back out right before these audit requirements, leaving participants in these counties with nothing, because the counties themselves don't do much except the service facilitation and maybe some therapy now and then. But we've had several instances where these vendors just back out because they're not getting paid timely and they're not being upfront. So requiring technical assistance when counties have these major problems through DHS, who offers technical assistance, but they're not required to engage in technical assistance when they're having problems. I would love to see the state being held responsible for these programs, because consumers and participants are going backwards in their recovery on a daily basis because they just don't have the people or the vendors or the staff to provide services. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Barbara, do you want to read the chat?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica Hayes, for this one. Lower medication costs. Just 1 second. Let me see if it started earlier. No. Okay. Lower medication costs for some meds, especially psych meds, can run into thousands per month. The right to work without risk of losing SSI or SSDI, and thus losing insurance and access to doctors and medication. Housing is also a huge crisis, as we now have tent cities and people living in Walmart park. let me run away. People living in Walmart parking lots throughout Wisconsin. A lot there. Thank you, Jessica.
I'd just like to add, because it came to mind when the part of the comment about working without losing your SSI or SSDI, which reminded me of the Department of Voc Rehab. There is currently, I think there's one more public hearing left. The existing CAP, Client Assistance Program, through the Department of Agriculture, is going to, the governor has proposed moving that to DRW, which would start October 1. And right now they're in the process of taking public comment to, if you have, because I know there's a lot of issues for people, especially counselors that don't seem to get it and things like that, for people with mental illness who are using DVR services. And we will be the place to complain going forward, instead of the existing CAP inside the state government. So if you're inclined to one way or the other to you can write comments about if you think it's a good idea, or you can appear at this public hearing, which the time, both the time of the public hearing and where to send your email comments are on our website. I don't have them in front of me. So I would
Barbara
suggest
just
you look
posted-
at our website and you could get them.
Barbara just posted them in the chat. Sorry to
Great.
interrupt.
Super.
Just to follow up on that, another area where we're getting some comments from people, and thanks so much for posting, please keep it coming, is the importance of support for people who have been incarcerated and are returning to the community, and the need for those services to be delivered in a timely manner, and that we really have a crisis with people coming out of prison with no homes, employment. Their mental health goes to the wayside as they are trying to have basic needs met. So thank you for those comments. I don't know if there's any comment on the comments from Kit or from the advisory council members.
No, I just simply say we believe, we know that's a huge problem. We had, you know, this last year, after a decade or more, we had success finally with the Department of Corrections and the Department of Health Services to have when someone goes into an institution like a prison, that if they were on services like for SSI or Medicaid or, you know, both, to have it put in suspension, not terminated. With, you know, Wisconsin for years and years and years, well, when they get notice that person X is now in prison, you can't receive SSI or Medicaid when you're in prison. That's part of the federal rules. So instead of just putting them on hold till they get out and then say, oh, you're back out, now you're in the community, the only impediment to you receiving it was where you were living, and you're not living in that place anymore, so now we can flip the switch and start you up again. Wisconsin didn't want to do that because it was, I guess, meant changing a lot of software and things like that. And we're not the only ones. Other advocates have been pushing and pushing and pushing for well over a decade on that. And then this last year, they finally agreed that they would no longer terminate, which meant you had to go find all your records all over again, proving this, proving that, documenting this. And that made life really difficult for people. So now they're able to remove the suspension when people go back into the community. So that doesn't solve everything, but it does open up some line of services to folks that hopefully is useful. And it certainly opens the door to medications and therapy and things like that. I mean, which CCS, I mean, if you get into the CCS, they help with housing, they help with employment. So it behooves the county to make sure that they're dealing with folks that come out of corrections and getting them into programming. That I'm not sure is happening the way it should, but certainly is something we're already trying to advocate for, and I know it's a big issue.
So there are some really great comments here about the particular challenges in rural areas in north central Wisconsin, and noting in particular the right to work and how difficult it is for people who are eligible for services to get access, and DVR being overworked and not providing services in a timely manner for people with mental health or people with disabilities.
These are great. Keep them coming. We want to hear from you. We want to hear where services are lacking.
Couple
What's
comments about family care and
Yeah.
the need for improvements in mental health services and training for staff.
Somebody asked, can we email other things if we think of them? Who would they email it to, Barbara? You can email, you can also fill out the PAIMI survey, which would be really great. Barbara will put that link
Yep,
in there.
I'll put the
also.
link in again. It's in
But
there
there's a
somewhere.
survey, and you can, anytime you have a thought or you come up with something where you think, oh, you know, this would be great to have this service or a support, or this should be a priority. We want to hear from you. Again, we have somebody who has a daughter in the prison system with mental illness that doesn't get their medication.
I think you know, we would be, you know, I think if the daughter or the mom can get us in touch with the daughter, that's something that we could do an intake and see what we could. I know I don't know if we could help or not, but it's certainly something that we would look into to see what we could do to help. Again, if the mom calls, she, you know, we would tell her, well, we'll need to talk to your daughter. Could you let your daughter know to call us, or figure out how we're going to make that happen? Because I think we found it's not very successful. If say, for example, a parent calls and says, my daughter's having this problem, if the daughter doesn't know that we're calling and why we're calling, they get this, well, who are you and why should I talk to you and how do I know you're going to help me? And it doesn't start off well. So we would eventually need to talk to the daughter, and so the quicker that the mom could help us get connected, that would be, the better it would be through intake.
Michelle put in the chat, I think that if we have programs in the prison to help keep children and families connected to their incarcerated family members, that we could get them the funding and support to transition to home communities. From Claire, are there a state and or federal programs that focus on bringing workers from urban areas to rural areas?
I have absolutely no idea on that one. That's out of my knowledge base.
That's interesting. Well, I do appreciate everything that's coming in. These are great. I'm reading through the chat.
Right, even if we don't respond to everything, because our time is short,
Right.
you know, these really help us see what you are saying are the issues that are important to address.
And it really helps us set our priorities. So it's coming up on 6 o'clock already. I want to thank you all so much for being with us. We appreciate this input. We hope that this was helpful information for you. Again, you can go ahead and take that survey on the website. Share your priorities with us by completing that survey, and we would love to hear from you. And on that note, I appreciate everyone's time tonight, and thanks so much for the Peer Recovery Conference Committee for partnering with us to get your input on these important issues, and I appreciate that. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Feel free to email with any questions or follow-up. We'll also send out a follow-up email with the survey link.
Thanks, everybody, for being very talkative today. We appreciate that, and wonderful ideas and thoughts. Appreciate it all.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to stop the recording.